I didn't fight a good fight. I think I went in with a plan and stuck to the plan. I think I paid for it. So.
As a mixed martial artist, simply making it to the UFC is an impressive accomplishment. However, for those who truly wish to reach the pinnacle of the profession, winning a world championship inside the octagon is the ultimate goal. Of course, capturing a UFC title is extremely difficult, and things don't get any easier once a fighter finally has the UFC gold around their waist. In fact, over the years, we've seen several athletes who quickly discovered that staying atop of the MMA mountain can be far more difficult than climbing it. So for this video, we'll be taking a look at a list of fighters who were ultimately unable to record even a single title defense. As always, if you guys enjoy this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 UFC champions who lost their belt in their first title defense. Number 10. Luke Rockhold. San Jose, California's Luke Rockhold had all the making of a great champion. He had the physique, the movie star good looks, and could definitely get it done inside the cage. While the talented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt did win the title, his reign would be short-lived. After a 4-fight win streak that included victories over legends like Lyoto Machida, Rockhold was set to face off against Chris Weidman for the middleweight strap at UFC 194. The former Strikeforce champ would end up beating Weidman rather convincingly, on his way to capturing the middleweight crown. Following the victory, Rockhold was considered to be one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and appeared to be in for a lengthy stay at the top of the middleweight division. However, a fighter out of the UK named Michael Bisping had other plans. Bisping stepped in as a last-minute replacement to fight Rockhold at UFC 199, and given that the San Jose native had already beaten the Englishman with relative ease roughly 2 years earlier, most fans expected the belt to stay with the champ. However, Bisping would end up avenging his loss via a spectacular first-round knockout, thus ending Rockhold's reign before it even really got started. Number 9. Matt Serra. The 4th season of the Ultimate Fighter reality series featured several journeyman fighters who had previously fought in the UFC. Whoever won the tournament this time around would receive both a UFC contract and a shot at a championship. When the dust settled, it was Jiu-Jitsu ace Matt Serra who managed to become the welterweight winner. By doing so, he earned a shot at then champion and all-time great Georges St. Pierre. The two men would square off at UFC 69 back in April of 2007. Heading into the fight, most pundits believed that GSP would make short work of the journeyman out of New York. As such, the French-Canadian was a massive betting favourite. However, in what would go down as the upset of the decade, Serra landed a big shot that sent Pierre to the canvas, on his way to a TKO victory. Roughly 1 year later, a rematch took place at UFC 83. Only this time, St. Pierre would put an end to Serra's Cinderella story in convincing fashion, with a series of brutal knees to the body. Number 8. Shogun Rua. Mauricio Shogun Rua first made a name for himself in Japan as the winner of Pride Fighting Championship's Middleweight Grand Prix in 2005. After signing with the UFC roughly 2 years later, the Brazilian wasted little time in making his presence felt, with wins over legends like Mark Coleman and Chuck Liddell, on his way to earning a shot at the light heavyweight strap. Following a controversial decision loss to the champion Lyoto Machida, Shogun was granted an immediate rematch at UFC 113. Rua would end up winning the second encounter handedly after securing a very impressive first-round knockout. As it turned out, Rua's first title defense would be against a young up-and-comer named John Jones. So, in March of 2011, at UFC 128, the talented youngster would put an end to Shogun's brief title reign. Jones would then go on to dominate the division for the best part of a decade and counting. Number 7. Eddie Alvarez. For years, former Bellator lightweight champion Eddie Alvarez was widely considered as one of the best fighters outside of the UFC. However, all that changed in 2014, when the Underground King finally signed a contract with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Though he would go on to lose his promotional debut to Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Alvarez would then go on to rattle off consecutive victories over Gilbert Melendez and Anthony Pettis. In doing so, the former Bellator champ earned himself a shot at Rafael dos Anjos, and with it, the UFC Lightweight Championship. Alvarez would go on to win the fight via first-round TKO, with his first title defense coming against none other than featherweight champ Conor McGregor, who at the time was looking to become a two-division title holder. McGregor would end up accomplishing this historic feat and end the Underground King's title run with a dramatic second-round TKO. Number 6. Johny Hendricks. At UFC 167, Johny Big Rig Hendricks would lose a controversial split decision to the UFC welterweight champion GSP. Following the contest, St. Pierre announced that he would be taking an extended leave of absence from the sport. With the Canadian superstar out of the picture, Hendricks looked to be the man who could fill the void. In his next fight, the former college wrestler defeated Robbie Lawler for the vacant UFC title, in what turned out to be a knockdown, drag-out affair. However, Big Rig would end up losing the immediate rematch via split decision, in what was a Fight of the Year contender. Sadly, Hendricks' career would never get back on track following his epic showdowns with Robbie Lawler, with the former champ going 2-5 over the course of his next 7 contests, before retiring in 2018. Number 5. Cody Garbrandt. On December the 30th, 2016, Cody No Love Garbrandt became just the second fighter in MMA history to defeat Dominic Cruz, on his way to becoming the UFC bantamweight champion. Given how dominant he looked against an all-time great like Cruz, combined with the fact that he was still in his mid-20s, No Love looked poised for a lengthy championship reign. However, it wasn't meant to be. Garbrandt's first challenger was former alpha male teammate TJ Dillashaw. The pair coached opposite one another on the 25th season of The Ultimate Fighter, which helped fuel an already bitter rivalry. Unfortunately for Garbrandt, when the two finally met inside the octagon, it was Dillashaw who would end up getting his hand raised, finishing his former teammate with a second round TKO. Unfortunately, Garbrandt has struggled to secure a win since then, and is currently on a 3-fight losing streak. Number 4. Holly Holm. UFC 193 featured one of the most shocking moments in MMA history, when the Preacher's daughter Holly Holm ended Ronda Rousey's undefeated streak and became the new women's bantamweight champion. Seemingly overnight, Holm went from being a relative unknown to becoming one of the most famous female combat sports athletes in the world. Following the win, the UFC encouraged Holly Holm to wait until Rousey was ready to return for what was sure to be a very lucrative rematch. However, wanting to stay active, Holm instead decided to accept her first title challenger in the form of Washington's Miesha Tate. Heading into the 5th and final round of the contest, Holm appeared to be cruising ahead on the judges' scorecard. However, Tate managed to score a late takedown and secured a rear naked choke, thus ending Holm's short reign as queen of the bantamweight division. Number 3. Cain Velasquez. Former UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez is one of the only members of this list to enjoy 2 undisputed title reigns. He first captured UFC gold by soundly defeating Brock Lesnar at UFC 121 in 2010. He was then set to defend his title against rising contender Judith Dos Santos, with the two acting as the headliner of the first ever UFC on Fox. However, he was ultimately knocked out by Dos Santos just 1 minute into the fight, ending both his first title reign as well as his undefeated winning streak. Fortunately for Velasquez, he was granted a chance at redemption, and he made the most of it. Velasquez would go on to avenge his loss to Dos Santos and reclaim the heavyweight crown. His second run as the division's top dog was far more successful, with the California native recording 2 successful title defenses before ultimately losing the strap to Fabricio Werdum in June of 2015. Number 2. Fabricio Werdum. Speaking of Fabricio Werdum, the talented Brazilian submission artist also struggled to keep the championship that he fought so hard to claim. After 5 consecutive victories over top-ranked fighters, Fabricio earned the interim heavyweight title, as well as a shot at the division champion Cain Velasquez. Werdum went on to defeat Velasquez with a 3rd-round submission, laying claim to the undisputed heavyweight crown. Following his upset victory over Cain Velasquez at UFC 188, Werdum's next opponent would be everyone's favourite firefighter, Stipe Miocic. The two met at UFC 198 in Fabricio's home country of Brazil. Despite the home crowd advantage, Werdum was knocked out in the very first round, and having been beaten in rather convincing fashion, the jiu-jitsu ace was not granted an immediate rematch, and has yet to receive another shot at UFC gold. Number 1. Miesha Tate. Following her second loss to Ronda Rousey in 2013, it appeared that Miesha Takedown Tate was destined to go down as one of the best female fighters to never win a UFC title. After all, at that time, Rousey looked unstoppable and was running through the competition with relative ease. However, all of that changed when Rousey finally met her match in the form of Holly Holm. As was previously mentioned, rather than wait for a rematch with Rousey, Holm opted to take on Tate, which turned out to be a big mistake. Of course, Miesha Tate's title reign was also very brief. The first woman to challenge Tate for her newly won crown would be Amanda Nunes, with the two clashing at UFC 200 back in 2016. Following a series of big shots, Nunes would end up submitting her opponent and become the new bantamweight champ, a title that she still holds to this day. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching guys, and we'll see you on the next video.